Okay, jump in our chapter of Incognito, and help me get ready. Okay. Hey, what's up, guys? Mike's here, and today we have another chapter to read for the RWBY fanfiction. That's the new one. Never had any RWBY fanfiction before, and it's called Incognito. It's by Spider M. So shout out to Spider M for um who wrote this one, the whole story, and yeah, thanks. I really love your fanfiction story, but keep it coming, okay? Just keep it coming. I really love reading that. Just want to see how all things done. So yes, I'm going to read this chapter 2. Remember, it's a very very long chapter. Each chapter is going to take us a little longer and longer than it looks. So it's going to take a while. So let's just start. Let's just do this. Maybe, I hope. Bright lights flickered across an otherwise dark-lit room, a tangle of bodies maneuvering around the crowded dance floor. The low, repetitive thud of bass rung in his ears, like an erratic pulse, coursing throughout his entire body. Neptune leaned back against the upholstery of his seat, his fingers brushing over his hair. He glanced down at his watch, momentarily with a sigh. It's been almost 30 minutes since Sun had gone to get drinks for them, leaving Neptune all by himself. Neptune grit his teeth in frustration, his patience wearing thin. Sun had assured him it wouldn't take long, yet here he was, sitting awkwardly in a club in an unfamiliar city, surrounded by strangers. What the hell is keeping him? Neptune wondered. He hoped Sun had tried to walk up without pain, as he was sometimes prone to doing, and gotten kicked out or something. Exhaling lowly, Neptune sat up, resting his chin against his hand. Admittedly, Junior's did seem like a pretty cool place. He and Sun hadn't had to spend much time looking for the club. They could hear it. It was actually within walking distance from their new place. Sun had been pretty eager to check it out, though Neptune had felt kind of tired after their day of moving, just wanted to relax somewhere, not really having the energy to brave a club. Though, and he probably wouldn't admit it out loud, he was more likely discouraged by the fact there would be dancing. Sometimes that wasn't exactly his forte. Neptune shuddered at the mere thought. Sun, however, had managed to convince him, reasoning that it was pointless to roam the entire city looking for somewhere else when his place was right here. His place was right there. Glancing around the room for his friend, a task made exceedingly difficult by the plumes of smoke and flashing strobe lights, Neptune caught sight of two girls walking in his direction. Pretty cute ones, too. They were dark-haired, about the same height, and had similar-looking faces. Their only real distinction was their dress. One was in red and had red hair cut short, while the girl wearing blue with hair falling to her waist. Neptune smiled softly to himself, his mood suddenly lifting, as he forgot all about drinks and dancing and lying, soul roommates. He suddenly remembered why he had been so eager to go out and explore the town in the first place. Twins, nice, he thought with a slightly grin. It was time to turn on the charm. Ladies, Neptune said, pointing his fingers into the shape of a gun, winking flirtatiously as they passed him. The pair rolled their eyes, looking to one another with bored expressions. The girl in red beckoned towards the dance floor with her head, and her twin nodded silently before they walked up without so much as answering him. Shrugging, Neptune launched back to his seat, folding his arms behind his head. Nice job there, lady killer. Surprised, Neptune glanced over his shoulder at the feminine voice calling to him. His eyes met a tall blonde woman around. Her lips curled to a smirk. The expression was teasing, almost challenging, one that Neptune couldn't help but mirror. Whatever, he answered. They weren't both. They weren't worth my time anyway. Oh, really? She asked, grinning smugly and folding her arms beneath her chest. Is that why you're sitting here all by yourself? In spite of a playful dig at his expense, Netson smiled, thankful for the conversation. At least now, he wouldn't have to pretend to message people on his scroll so that he wouldn't look like a complete loner. There was a pretty girl talking to him. Netson made what he hoped was a subtle movement further down the bench, allowing room for her to sit should she chose to. Actually, for your information, I'm just waiting here for a friend, Netson answered, a light-hearted indignity in his tone. Although, I'm starting to think he may have ditched me. Aw, poor baby, the woman cooed as she moved in closer, silently accepted his offer to sit across from him. You're not from around here, are you? I mean, I've never seen you in this club before. You could say that, yeah. I actually moved here today. Really? From where? Minstrel. She whistled lowly. Damn, that's quite the trip. I'm surprised you even have the energy to be out this late. Well, we wanted to celebrate our new place, see what this town has to offer. Seems like a pretty lame celebration. You're not even going to dance with everyone else? Neptune swallowed, his eyes glancing down at his feet as he fumbled for an answer. This was going well. He didn't want to admit to her couldn't dance. That wasn't cool. She seemed to pick up in his hesitance as she stood back to her feet, extending her hand out and gazing at him expectantly. Well, Neptune! Came the boisterous, slightly slurred call of his friend, drawing the attention of all the people immediately around him. Sun staggered out from the crowd, moving unsteadily towards Neptune. Hey, buddy! I finally found you! Sun? Huh? The woman sat across from him, glancing over her shoulder. I take it, that's your friend? Unfortunately. Neptune answered with a sigh, turning back to Sun as he approached him. Dude, what took you so long? Sorry, I was preoccupied with something. Sun stumbled over his own feet and threw an arm around Neptune's shoulder. Neptune couldn't tell if the gesture was meant to be affectionate or he was genuinely trying to keep himself from losing his balance. He caught sight of an empty shot glass in Sun's hand. Probably the latter. Boy, somebody can hold their liquor, the blonde equipped, agreeing with Neptune's assessment. Jesus, you're really wasted. How many these you have had? Only like 3, Sun answered, his voice lowering to a playful whisper. Plus 10. You paid for those, right? Jeez, who are you, my mother? Sun said. He pushed himself away from Neptune and began yanking his tie, eventually pulling it loose. Ah, that's better. Stupid neck trap. His hands reached for her hem of his shirt, starting to undo the buttons. Across from him, the blonde widened her eyes in surprise, before a suggestive grin crossed her face as she admired the flashes of Sunset's toned flesh. Sun, what are you doing? Neptune exclaimed, grabbing his arm and stopping him. You're not a Vaku anymore. You can't just go prancing around shirtless. There are dress codes. You're gonna get kicked out. Whatever, man. They don't scare me. I'm not some conformist. I'm an individual. The Sun exclaimed before staggering over again. Neptune just managing to catch in time. Well, I should probably get this guy home before he does anything too crazy, Neptune said to the blonde as he began to guide his friend towards the exit. Thanks for talking to me, though. She nodded in understanding, but watched Neptune as he left, a hint of concern lingering in her eyes. You're gonna be alright. Getting him there by yourself? Yeah, I'm sure we'll be fine. We don't live that far from here anyway. Oh, really? Yeah, we just moved into a new building down the street. Really? She asked, chuckling softly with a shake of her head. Neptune rose an eyebrow, curious as to what stirred this reaction from her. Well, I'm surprised we didn't run into each other earlier then. Oh, yeah? What was that? Neptune asked. I live in that building too. I've been there for a while now, actually. You don't say. You know what? I think I'll tag along with you. We're going the same way after all. Are you sure? You don't have to leave on our account. It's cool. I should probably get back before my sister and roommates start worrying. Besides, it's a weeknight. They're going to have to close up pretty soon, otherwise they'll be getting noise complaints. Yang said, rolling her eyes. Oh, okay. Well, lead the way, I guess, Vincent said, gesturing from her to walk ahead of him. She smiled, peeling softly away from the dark recesses of the club towards the exit. And cacophony of bass and synth steadily dying down. Neptune lagged behind her, the weight of his friend slowing his pace considerably. By the way, Neptune called as she held the door open to him. I never got your name. It's Yang, she said, giving a sly smirk while he passed her. Oh well, hey Yang, I'm Neptune. This is Sun, Neptune said, gesturing his head towards his half-conscious friend who gave the lazy wave. I guess you knew that already, though. He would have offered to shake her hand, but he was worried Sun might keel over if he let him go. Noticing this, Yang opened to move in and pat him across the shoulder. It's nice to meet you, neighbor. Blake set her book down with a huff, unable to concentrate over the noise coming from outside her apartment. No matter how hard she tried, she just couldn't drown it out. She closed the window, managed to cut out most of the loud, repetitive music, but couldn't do much about the obnoxious voices carrying down the street as the closet's inebriated patrons staggered home, tripping over themselves and trying to hail taxis. That was the problem with living down the road from a popular local nightclub, though admittedly. It did have its perks. The rent under the place was very cheap. Yang had gone out earlier and Ruby was already in bed for the night, tired after a hard day at work. While she enjoyed the company of the two sisters, Blake was thankful for momentary solitude and had planned to take advantage of it. After making herself some tea and settling down for the evening, Blake had looked forward to finally starting on the book she brought back from Tuckson's earlier that week. Unfortunately, it seemed like fate had other plans. Sighing in defeat, Blake closed her book and set it down on the coffee table. She just had to wait. It was a weeknight and getting late, so the club wouldn't be allowed to stay open much longer. Once it closed, she'd be able to sit and read in peace. Blake didn't normally watch a lot of television, preferring to read, but she supposed it could help her to kill some time. Picking up the remote, she turned on the television, watching the black screen slowly flicker to life. The room was filled with ecstatic boys, the picture displaying a professionally dressed woman staring directly into the camera. It must have been a late news program. None of this registered to Blake. However, as she froze upon hearing the newscaster's voice, her eyes stopped, transfixed on the monitor, overwhelmed by the sight of the white and red logo forming a Beowulf's head that graced the screen. Members of the radical animal rights activist group with the White Fang were taken into custody last evening after their suspected involvement in a plot to destroy several train cars owned by the Schnee Company. The three were allegedly planning to raid the cars with live explosives and detonate them during the routine run through Forever Fall. This is just one of the many violent acts by the activist group we have been seeing over the past few weeks, all of which have been targeted at the Schnee Company. Members of the White Fang had decreed these attacks are a protest against what they believe to be the Schnee's involvement in mining operations, which are destructive to the natural habitats of Grimm. This recent activity has led to a significant increase in the number of law enforcement officers overseeing their rallies. With many of them breaking out into violence, Blake felt her heart thumping unsteadily against her chest, her fingers clutching a tense grip around the remote as the story continued. She wanted nothing more than to switch off the television, to block out the noise blaring from it, pretend that she hadn't heard anything. But a cruel, curious part of her was drawn to it. Even if she could summon the strength to turn off and push out the last ounce of presence they had in her life, Blake knew it wouldn't change anything. Her story had already been written. Her involvement with the White Fang couldn't be undone. They were still out there, They were still out there committing horrific crimes, sullying the cause she had once fought for. The past she had tried so desperately to escape was still steadfast in its chase, following her, clinging to her. It awoke memories of that night in Forever Fall, the mission she'd gone on with him. It was on that day that she swore she would never be part of the White Fang again. Her first exposure to the group's new violent regime enacted under their new leader. It was the first time she'd seen her partner's true nature, a part of him she could have never even imagined existed. Something callous, uncaring to the lives of others, intent only on sending a message, someone, she feared, who would only cause harm rather than good. Blake had always admired Adam. For all she knew, she might have even had feelings for him. He was a man who had helped her, mentored her, and given her life a purpose. She had always thought that he was someone she could trust, yet on that day a rift had formed between them. It shouldn't have surprised her, really. She had noticed a gradual change in Adam over her time in the White Fang. The frustration he felt over their failure to spread their message to make an impact through their protests had been getting to him. Adam had grown tired of their numbers being overlooked and had decided to act, to lash with a message that no one would be able to ignore. The rallies had escalated to a point where their true purpose seemed like they had become lost. It was no longer about conveying a message and trying rationally to reach a mutual understanding. It had become about forcing and intimidating others into submission, strong arming them to support a cause. Blake didn't want to hurt anyone. She didn't want to control people through fear. She couldn't adhere to their stances anymore, so she left without a word, without so much as a goodbye, but mostly without having to regret her involvement, without having to clean blood from her hands. Still, Blake couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if she had stayed. What would have become for her? Would she would be herself, or have eventually succumbed to the same frustration and hatred that had consumed Adam, completely changing him? Would she be going out on dangerous missions, taking part in violent rallies? Would she be trying to take another person's life? Blake, startled by that rough voice, Blake stood upright. The television faded into darkness, the remote control falling from her grasp as if it had seared her skin. Ruby stood in front of the bedroom doorway, watching Blake through misty, slightly unfocused eyes, her expression focused. "Why are you still doing up?" she asked, her hand dangling in front of her mouth to stifle a yawn. Nothing. I was just moving closer towards the couch. Ruby placed a hand on her friend's shoulder, examining her face closely. Blake tried her best to appear calm, but from the heat collecting in her face and rag brats rocking her body, she knew that her expression would betray her. "Are you alright? You look like a little freaked out." "I'm fine, Ruby. I told you, it's nothing." Blake insisted, doing her best to offer a weak, strained smile. She stood to her feet, retrieving her book from where she had left it in the coffee table, noticing that the noise from the club outside had died down, passing her as she moved towards her own room. Blake brushed a hand through Ruby's hair, the touch affectionate and, she hoped, reassuring. A soft smile crossed over Blake's face, this time appearing a much more sincere. She appreciated her friend's concern, but she truly did. But she couldn't get her involved in this. Not Ruby, not Ying, not any of her friends. Her past needed to remain behind her. As her hand rested upon the door to her room, Blake glanced over her shoulder, speaking gently. "Go back to sleep, Ruby. I'm sorry if I disturbed you." Ruby frowned as she watched Blake close her door, a frustrated sadness clenching at her throat. First John, and now Blake? She couldn't understand what was going on and why her friends were acting so distant around her. They had both seemed so distressed, so clearly in need of support, but reluctant to reach out and accept her help, even when she offered it. Did they just not trust her? Or was it because she was too young and naive to really help them? Surely that couldn't be the case. After all, she wasn't that much younger than them, and Ruby liked to think that she was mature for her age, at least when the situation demanded. She had been moved up a couple of years in high school when she was younger, and had grown up interacting with older kids, I'm sorry. But even if it was an issue that was too far beyond her level of understanding, surely she was make a difference just by being there for them, giving them someone to listen. What exactly were they hiding from her? Thank you for agreeing to work with us on this project, Pira. I'm sure there are a lot of companies who would be eager to have strong, well-known individuals such as yourself represent them. Oh, please, my pleasure. Pure answered, smiling gentle to a woman on the screen before her. She cut herself, flushing subconsciously over Weiss's words. Normally, such a praise won't faze Pyrrha, and she tended to drown most of it out, though it was something she received on a regular basis. More often than not, the words always felt recycled and never genuine. They were meaningless to her, though Weiss's words seemed to have a lot of time merit to them. Weiss had never come across as intimidated by Pyrrha, nor she had ever tried to place her on a pedestal. Instead, she genuinely seemed to respect Pyrrha and her talent. Her admiration felt so much more real. Though they didn't know each other particularly well, Pyrrha felt Weiss was one of the few people she could hold a genuine conversation with, and someone that she could relate to. Being the heiress to such a powerful global company, Pierre suspected that Weiss may not have been all that different from her. They both had been thrust into difficult positions at a young age, living under pressure and public scrutiny every day. They had image to uphold and to consider be worried of themselves, never once stepping out of line. They could empathize with and understand one another. Pierre wondered if Weiss had had difficulty making friends in life too. Well, while you're here, Weiss said, breaking Pierre from her reverie. If you don't mind, Father asked if he could perhaps speak with you for a moment. Oh no, I don't mind at all. Great. If you could just wait one moment, I'll transfer the call through to his office. Okay, Fair answered. The image of Wise before eventually fizzling into static, replaced soon after by one of her father. Wise's father, a lot of the Snee family, was rather than stern individual. His eyes a cold, steel blue bored through Pyrrha as if silently measuring and scrutishing her. Pyrrha felt herself fidget unconsciously under his gaze, as if double-checking she was presentable normally, not one to be easily intimidated. She couldn't help but slightly unnerved. He regarded her curtly with a nod of his head. Miss Nikos? Mr. Snee, Pierre replied, with a soft bow of her head. She smiled nervously, relaxing into the conversation. Thank you again for the opportunity, sir. I won't let you down. Indeed. I suppose you might be curious as to we chose to hire you for this job? Pierre blinked, confused by the rather abrupt question. In all honesty, Pierre hadn't really given it too much thought. She assumed her had considered her on her past work at their company. She suspected her relationship with Wise may have influenced the decision as well. She answered with a nod, regardless, curious as to where he was going. Well, I take it you have been following the news over the past few days, Miss Nikos. Oh, why, yes, sir. I have been good. Then you may now that our image has been suffering as of late. We've been under criticism by the White Fang, who believe that the manufacturing of our products are detrimental to the environment, and more specifically, the surrounding animal habitat because of the White Fang's attacks on our company. People are reluctant to become involved with us. We've been losing sponsorships, partnerships have been falling through, and people are less inclined to buy our products. They're afraid that being associated with us may lead to them suffering the same fate. Pierre had seen the reports. They had been hard to miss, considering the insignificant coverage they had received in the media. In-depth accounts of White Fang damaging snake property or stopping shipments from reaching different kingdoms across Remnant have been featured routinely, often at the top news bulletins. Yet, with each story, Pierre noticed a trend, a tendency to shy away from the issue at hand. Not a single one of them addressed the claims made by the White Fang, not presented by any evidence to support or even dismiss the argument that the Sneak Company were damaging the environment and harming animal life in the progress. We felt it would be beneficial to our public image if we hired a spokesperson for our company, someone admired and respected by the public. My daughter suggested you. With the work you've done for brands like Pumpkin Pete's, we felt your image is one that people have come to know and trust. Attaching your name to our company and reminding the public of the services we have provided them for years may finally give us the same luxury once again. Pyrrha genuinely wanted to know, were there any truth to the claims? Because she wasn't sure who to believe. The White Fang were an extremist group with a number of the members being charged for involvement in terrorist activity. Frankly, she wasn't sure they were the most trustworthy source. Having said that, there must have been something that drove them to perform such violent acts. Who would those members really have gone so far and risk so much of their own livelihood if their cause wasn't rooted in some form of truth? On the other side, it would only make sense that the Sneak Company would deny something so potentially damaging to their reputation, regardless of whether or not it was the case. No company would want to be associated with such a scandal. If it were true, Pierre didn't know that she would be able to continue working with the Sneak Company. Boldly, Pierre spoke up, deciding to ask the Sneak had directly. So, are you saying that there is no truth to their claims? She began. The Sneak Company are not involved in any operation that could be damaging to the Grimm's natural habitats. I can assure Miss Nikos, those claims are indeed completely unfounded. I think I speak on behalf of everyone within this company when I say that we wouldn't dare to commit such an atrocity. She couldn't imagine White Sven being capable of doing something so heinous. They weren't bad people, a little strict perhaps, but certainly not. Alright, sir, I believe you. Thank you again, Miss Nikos. I'm glad you understand. We look forward to working with you. Ooh. Morning, guys, John said through a yawn, stumbling blindly out of his bedroom. It was morning. Ren and Nora were already up. Not surprisingly, they usually woke up first. Nora, because she was a bundle of endless childlike energy, and Ren, well, he was more than likely awake against his wishes. Probably because Nora was hungry. If the way he was currently hunched over the stove was any indication. John! Nora greeted cheerily. Ren looked over his shoulder, his eyes slightly beery, give his lazy way. How nice of you to join us. Want some breakfast? That's alright. I'll fix something myself. John answered, moving into the kitchen and rummaging through the pantry. It'd probably be best if I didn't trouble Ren right now. Suit yourself. Nora shrugged as John fished himself out a box of cereal and a bowl before sitting at the table across from Nora. So, I made sure everyone else had the weekend free from this get-together from RWBY, John said, pouring milk onto his cereal. He was still careful about not using the word party. It'll be cool for the 7 of us to hang out. Wait, 7? Where did you get 7 from? Nora asked, and John froze. Spoon raised halfway into his mouth. John drawled, realizing suddenly he said too much. He actually planned on inviting Pierre to RWBY's party, introducing her to all his friends. He just hadn't told anyone yet. It was a little embarrassing. You know, all of us, the gang, tried to cover, hoping Nora won't notice. That's only 6. Ren chimed from the kitchen. Us, Blake, Yang, and Ruby, of course. Right, Jonathan, gritting his teeth. Apparently Ren wasn't tired enough to mess his slip up. Well, I was kind of hoping I might be able to invite someone else. Another friend of mine. Someone else? Someone else? Who? Nora asked, eyeing him skeptically. Well, you see, I got this friend who's coming over from Minstrel on the weekend. I'm going to meet up with her, John explained, keeping his gaze lowered. She's never been to the city before, and I'm worried she might be lonely. I thought she might come to us. Her? Minstrel? Wait a minute. Are you talking about the girl you know online? John winced as Nora's voice gradually rose in pitch and volume. How could such a small person produce so much noise? Nora, I keep telling you it's nothing like that. Oh, come on, dude. Give me a time to work with here. But there's nothing to work with, really. She's my friend. If you're not bring any of this up while she's here, I don't want you weirding her out. What are you talking about? Me? Why could possibly do that would weird her out? John, Nora, please. Ransom, holding up his hands in surrender. Living in such hot-blooded friends could be difficult at times. Can you two please not do this so early in the morning? Nora folded her arms, looking away from John with a pout. Rand sighed, turning the heat on the stove down to a simmer as he faced his friends. Don't worry, John. I'm sure everyone will make your friend feel more than welcome. Alright. Here you go, Nora. Rand said, moving over to the table with a large stack of pancakes. He placed them before her. Can I please go back to bed now? Yay! Nora cheered, throwing her arms tightly toward him. Thank you, Ren. Pulling back from the embrace, Nora flushed as her eyes met Ren's, and she realized how close they were. Glancing away shyly, she reached out and tapped him softly on the nose. Boop! The gesture was playful and affectionate, something so innately Nora, yet at the same time, there was something about that appeared restrained to John, as if holding another meaning, hiding deeper, more complex feelings. He always felt that was the case, but then, Ren and Nora's relationship had always been a complex one. When John had first met the two, he assumed that they were dating. He wasn't entirely sure why. They just seemed so close and spent a lot of time together. It seemed like a logical conclusion. It wasn't until he asked Ren for advice about girls and how he first asked out Nora that he learned otherwise. Overhearing, it was Nora who had reassured John that they weren't actually together, all the while blushing cutely through nervous laughter. Since then, John had always been acutely conscious of an unresolved tension between them. Something that went beyond a friendship, something that had actually been there for years. He was only just picking up on, something that each of them seemed reluctant to act upon. Whenever they got close, Nora became uncharacteristically shyly around him, always quick to correct anyone who mistook their relationship as romantic. Perhaps a little too quick. Ren, while not particularly vocal, could express himself clearly whenever he chose to speak, his words flowing with succinct confidence has read the wrong line. Yet, when asked about his relationship with Nora, was reduced to a stumbling mess, barely able to form a sentence. John wasn't really sure what the problem was. It seemed perfectly clear that they liked each other, even to him. Their entire lives, they had always been friends. Did the idea of crossing beyond that boundary into something more scare them? Were they more comfortable with things remaining the way they were, even if it meant compromising, ignoring their feelings? Ren silently tended to Nora while she ate, wiping her face with a napkin, a love and gentleness in its touch, akin something shared between family, which John supposed made sense. For the better part of their lives, they hadn't had any relatives. All they had known was each other. In a way, that's what they were. Family. John smiled softly, watching the scene. It was kind of cute, actually. They known each other their entire lives and shared a deep, intimate bond, knowing the hardships that they endured. John was happy for his friends and the relationship they had started. They have both been orphaned at a young age, but had never had to be alone. Yet, at the same time, a more selfish part of him felt almost envious of how close they were. Two people so opposite yet so perfectly crafted for one another, who had been born in close proximity. They had never had to struggle or skirt the ends of the earth in search of their missing half, their soulmate. They had been within arm's reach for as long as they could remember. Staring down onto his bowl, John scooped out a spoonful of cereal with a sigh. He wished he could have been as fortunate. Alright, this next part right here is gonna be a chat. So, this one. So, I'll be landing in Bell on Friday at 7:30 in the morning. Hopefully, I can get some sleep on the airship. Okay, great. I'll be there. John, please, I keep telling you, you don't have to pick me up. I'm sure I can find my way on my own. I'm sure you can too, but I'm still picking you up. But it's so early. Well, don't worry about it. My roommates are always early risers, so I'll just get one of them to wake me up. It'll be fine. Well, if you think so. Of course I do, Pyrrha. Come on. We've been waiting for this so long. I want to be there for the moment you arrive. I'll be so happy to finally see you. I'll be happy too. I just don't want to cause you too much trouble. Pyrrha, it's no trouble at all. Really, you're my friend. It's the least I could do. Still, I had to make it out to you somehow. For breakfast. You like pumpkin pizza, right? Who doesn't? Great, because it just so happens that I have a 3 year supply of it. What? Seriously? Wait, why do you have that? I thought you only ate healthy stuff. You know what? It's a long story. I'll tell you when I get there. I still can't believe this is happening. I know. I can't either. That's it. Oh my god. That's a long ass story. That is a long ass story right there. It's gonna take us the whole entire thing. About like more than half an hour. As I look at the bottom of the screen, it took like the whole entire half an hour of reading this stuff. That's a lot. Okay guys, that is it for chapter 2, and I'll see you guys next time. Oh man, that's a lot of story. You know, guys are... Oh man.